There is something happening in Ukraine right now that has almost nothing to do with a single drone, a single missile, or a single battle, and yet it may end up mattering more than any of them. Ukraine has quietly assembled a weapon that no other country on Earth possesses, and it is not made of steel or explosives. It is made of data. Roughly 500,000 hours of it. 500,000 hours of real war, recorded from the front lines, and now being fed into artificial intelligence. This is the story of how the most watched war in history is becoming the training ground for the next generation of military machines, and why the country that owns that footage may end up owning the future of automated warfare. Let's start with what this data actually is, because the number by itself, 500,000 hours, is almost impossible to feel. Think about it this way. If you sat down and watched it back to back, without sleeping, without stopping, it would take you more than 50 years to get through it all. And every one of those hours is not a movie or a simulation. It is real combat, captured by the machines fighting it. It is the first-person view from an FPV drone as it dives onto a tank. It is thermal footage of a target glowing white against a cold field at night. It is reconnaissance drones loitering over trenches, watching movement for hours. It is air defense cameras catching the exact moment a Shahed drone is intercepted. Every kind of engagement this war has produced. And this war has produced more drone engagements than any conflict in history, has been filmed, from the point of view of the weapon itself. For most of the war, that footage did what you would expect. It went onto the internet. It became the endless stream of strike videos the whole world has watched. It was used for propaganda, for morale, for intelligence, for confirming kills. But somewhere along the way, Ukraine realized it was sitting on something far more valuable than a highlight reel. It was sitting on the single largest library of real modern combat ever recorded. And that library is exactly what artificial intelligence needs to learn. To understand why this matters so much, you have to understand how military AI actually learns. Because this is where the real story is. An artificial intelligence that recognizes targets, that can look at a shape on a screen and decide, that is a tank, that is an armored personnel carrier, that is a civilian car, does not come out of the box knowing anything. It has to be taught, and it is taught by being shown examples. Thousands upon thousands of them. You show it labeled images. This is a T-72. This is a BTR. This is a pickup truck full of soldiers. This is an ambulance you must not touch. The more examples it sees, and the more varied and realistic they are, the better it gets at telling them apart in the real world. And here is the crucial part. For years, militaries and defense companies trained these systems mostly on simulations, computer-generated imagery, staged exercises, clean footage shot in controlled conditions. And simulation data has a fatal weakness. It is too clean. It shows you a tank sitting perfectly in frame, in good light from a textbook angle. But real war does not look like that. Real war is a tank half hidden under a camouflage net, seen through smoke, at a strange angle, at dusk, partially dug into a tree line, next to a decoy, while the drone filming it is shaking and losing signal. A model trained only on clean data falls apart the moment it meets the mess of the real battlefield. It has never seen the mess. It does not know what the mess looks like. Ukraine's 500,000 hours are nothing but the mess. Every ugly angle, every bad weather engagement, every half-destroyed vehicle, every clever bit of camouflage, every failed attack and every successful one. It is all in there, filmed by the weapons themselves in the exact conditions the AI will one day have to operate in. This is why a neural network trained on this dataset can do something remarkable. It can tell a T-72 tank from a BTR armored carrier from a civilian vehicle at altitudes, angles, and lighting that no simulation could ever reproduce, because it learned from the real thing. There is a categorical difference between 50,000 hours of simulation and 500,000 hours of real war, and that difference is the whole game. You cannot fake this data. You cannot generate it in a lab. The only way to get it is to have fought the largest drone war in human history, and recorded all of it. But raw footage on its own is not enough, and this is a part most people miss. A neural network cannot learn from a video the way you or I watch one. Someone, or something, has to label it first, to go through the footage and mark it up frame by frame, saying this box is a tank, this box is an armored carrier, this is a soldier, This is a civilian vehicle. This is the moment of impact. That labeling, that annotation, is the painstaking work that turns a raw video into a teaching example a machine can actually study. And the scale here is staggering. We are not talking about a few tagged clips. We are talking about millions upon millions of annotated frames, drawn from those hundreds of thousands of hours, each one turned into a lesson. Building that annotated library is enormous, grinding work, and Ukraine has been doing it at industrial scale, because it understood early that the labeled dataset, not the raw footage, is the real treasure. The country did not just record the war. It has been carefully turning the war into a textbook, page by page, that its machines can read. So what is Ukraine actually doing with it? This is where a name comes in that you are going to hear a lot more in the coming years. Brave1. Brave1 is Ukraine's defense technology accelerator, the government-backed engine that connects the military, the state, and hundreds of private tech companies to build weapons fast. And in early 2026, Brave1, working together with the American data company Palantir, launched something called the Brave1 Dataroom. Think of it as a secure library, a vault, where that enormous archive of annotated, labeled combat footage is made available to trusted developers so they can train their AI models on it, without exposing sensitive operational secrets. Within months, well over 100 Ukrainian defense tech companies were plugged into that data room, all of them training their systems on the same unmatched library of real battlefield data. Stop and think about what that structure means. It is not one secret lab building one AI. It is a whole ecosystem, 100+ companies, plus international partners, all drinking from the same well of real combat experience, all improving their targeting, their navigation, and their autonomy at the same time. Ukraine did not just collect the data. It built a factory for turning that data into smarter and smarter machines, and it opened the doors of that factory to an entire industry. And it is not only Ukrainian companies at the well. American firms have quietly moved in too. A defense startup based in Virginia is reported to be using over 500,000 hours of this Ukrainian war footage to train military AI models of its own. Ukraine's own defense minister has said it plainly that artificial intelligence is becoming the decisive factor on the modern battlefield. When the person running a country's entire defense apparatus says the deciding factor is no longer a particular tank or missile, but the software learning from the war itself, you are watching a doctrine change in real time. The data has become a strategic resource in its own right, as valuable as oil or rare metals, and everyone who understands that is trying to get a share of it. And the output is already in the field. This is not a research project for some distant future. The results are flying and fighting right now. AI trained on this data lets Ukrainian drones identify and lock onto targets on their own. And, critically, it lets them keep working even when Russia is jamming everything in sight. Electronic warfare, the jamming that cuts the link between a drone and its human operator, has been one of Russia's most effective defenses. But a drone that has learned to recognize its target visually does not need a perfect radio link in the final seconds. It can see the target with its own camera and finish the job on its own. One system built through this pipeline is reported to automate as much as 95% of the entire interception process. The drone doing almost all of the work of finding, tracking, and closing on an incoming threat, with the human role shrinking to approval. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the specific problem it solves. Because there are two ways a modern drone can be defeated, and AI attacks both of them. The first is jamming the control link, which we have talked about. Cut the radio between drone and pilot, and a manually flown drone goes blind and deaf. The second is jamming its navigation, the satellite signal, the GPS, that tells the drone where it is in the world. Russia does this constantly, blanketing the front with electronic noise so that drones lose their position and drift off course. But a machine that has learned, from 500,000 hours of footage, what the ground actually looks like, the roads, the tree lines, the rivers, the shape of the terrain, can navigate by sight, the way a human pilot reads landmarks, without needing a satellite to tell it where it is. Train the AI on enough real footage, and you get drones that can neither be blinded nor lost, because they see the target and read the ground with their own eyes. That is the holy grail of drone warfare, and this dataset is the road to it. Now put that together with the single most urgent problem Ukraine faces night after night, the Shaheds. Russia launches these cheap, mass-produced attack drones at Ukrainian cities in waves, sometimes hundreds in a single night, swarming in to overwhelm the defenses. Shooting them down one by one with expensive missiles is a losing game. The whole point of the Shahed is that it is cheaper than what you need to stop it. The answer Ukraine is building is autonomy. If a defending interceptor drone can identify an incoming Shahed on its own, chase it, and destroy it without a human flying every second of the intercept, then Ukraine can meet a swarm with a swarm, cheap hunters against cheap attackers, at machine speed, with people supervising rather than piloting. And that only works if the interceptor's brain has been trained on countless real examples of what a Shahed looks like. From every angle, in the dark, against clutter. Which is exactly what those 500,000 hours provide. You have already seen an early piece of this pipeline in action, even if you did not know it. Ukraine's AI terminal guidance chip, a small module that takes over an FPV drone in the last moments of its attack and steers it to the target using vision instead of a radio link, was one of the first real products to come out of this data. It reportedly raised the hit rate of FPV drones by several times, turning a weapon that missed often into one that connects far more reliably, even under jamming. That chip is the tip of the iceberg. The bigger prize is the next generation, autonomous interceptor drones designed to hunt down incoming Shahed drones. The cheap, mass-launched attack drones Russia fires at Ukrainian cities. And to do it faster than any human could react, identifying and engaging in the terminal phase without a person flying each one. And this points to the real shift underneath all of it. A change not just in weapons, but in how war is fought and who or what makes the decisions. Ukrainian officials have started describing a future force structure in almost startling terms. A day when, instead of thousands of drone pilots each manually flying a single machine, you might have a handful of operators, 10 in one description, reviewing and approving decisions that the machines have already made. Read that again. The human does not fly the drone. The human does not pick the target by hand. The machine finds the target, proposes the engagement, and the human says yes or no. The pilot becomes a supervisor. The swarm flies itself, and a small number of people ride herd on the whole thing, approving the AI's recommendations. That is a profound change, and it is being built right now, on the back of this data. It is the difference between a tool you operate and a system you oversee. And whichever military gets there first, whichever military can field large numbers of drones that find and engage targets on their own, reliably, under jamming, without a human in the loop for every shot, will have a structural advantage over everyone else. Not a better gun, a better brain, spread across thousands of cheap machines. Which is exactly why the rest of the world is watching Ukraine so closely, and increasingly trying to get access. This is no longer a secret. The United States, through companies like Palantir, is directly involved in building the platform. American defense startups are already using this 500,000-hour library to train their own military AI. NATO defense ministries understand exactly what this dataset represents. Because here is the uncomfortable truth for every wealthy, technologically advanced military on Earth. You can have the best engineers, the biggest budgets, and the most powerful computers in the world, and it does not matter, because you cannot buy what Ukraine has. You cannot purchase 500,000 hours of real, modern, high-intensity combat. There is only one way to get it, and it is the worst way imaginable. You have to live through the war that produces it. Ukraine has paid for this dataset in a currency no one else wants to spend, and that is precisely what makes it irreplaceable. It has already gone beyond quiet interest. Reports describe American military observers traveling to Ukrainian training ranges to watch this technology being developed and tested in the conditions no exercise can imitate. Allied defense ministries are pushing for access to the dataset and the tools built on it. And you can see why the urgency is real. The next war between major powers, whoever it is between, will be fought in part by autonomous systems, and those systems will be only as good as the data they learned from. A military that trained its AI on clean simulations will send machines into battle that have never truly seen war. A military that trained on Ukraine's archive will send machines that have, in a sense, already fought thousands of engagements before they ever take off. That is the edge everyone is chasing, and right now, there is exactly one place on Earth that holds it. This is the strange, cold logic of it. The most advanced militaries in the world train their AI on simulations and exercises because, thankfully, they are not fighting a massive war. Ukraine trains its AI on the real thing because it has no choice. And that terrible circumstance has handed Ukraine a lead in military artificial intelligence that money cannot close. The country that trains its machines on the largest real combat dataset in existence will field the smartest autonomous systems of the next generation. And for now, that country is Ukraine, holding a training data advantage no other military on the planet can replicate. There is, of course, a darker edge to all of this, and it would be dishonest not to name it. What we are describing is the birth of machines that identify human targets and recommend killing them, with people moving further and further from each individual decision. The same data that lets a drone tell a tank from an ambulance is the data that lets a machine decide what to strike. The promise is precision. Fewer mistakes, fewer civilian deaths, faster defense against swarms of incoming drones. The peril is a world where engagement decisions happen at machine speed, across thousands of weapons at once, with human oversight stretched thinner and thinner. Ukraine did not set out to build that world. It set out to survive. But in surviving, it is writing the playbook that every other military will study. And the questions this raises about autonomous weapons are not going to stay in Ukraine. For now, the machine is learning. Every day the war continues. The library grows. More hours, more engagements, more labeled examples of every way this new kind of warfare unfolds. And every day, the models trained on it get a little sharper, a little more autonomous, a little closer to that future of 10 operators approving the decisions of 1,000 machines. Ukraine turned the worst experience a nation can have into the one thing the age of military AI values most: real data, at a scale no one else can match. And the weapons being built on top of it will outlast this war by a very long time. Thanks for watching. If you want to understand the technology quietly reshaping how wars are fought, and who or what decides, stay with us, because the machines are only getting started.